She's Kalyn Kahler, the senior NFL writer at ESPN, and it dealt with a story that the NFL refuses to let die. It's the Will Reichard field goal that hit the wire or didn't hit the wire in London. Kalyn joins us now. Kalyn, great work on the story.
Thank
I
you.
have more questions coming out of it than I had going into it, but this all traces back to the fact that sometimes the NFL just doesn't know when to just issue a statement and be done with it.
Yeah, this was the most. Well, this was actually, I have a couple observations. One is that this is the most that the league has actually cooperated with me, I feel like, on any story that I've worked on involving needing to go to the league office and ask for information or ask for a statement. I mean, they gave like something like a 4-sentence statement to us about this field goal, which was that it definitively, they said it did not hit the wire. They explained why the camera angle that was circulating on social media after the field goal miss, they explained the mechanics of why that shot made it seem like it hit the wire. And they said that they checked with the network crew that was there in London, which was Fox production for an NFL network game. They said that they went to Fox, had Fox, review where the cameras were. That production crew went through a whole process and determined it would not have been possible where the cameras were placed for Will Reichard's ball to hit the wire. So I was stunned by the level of detail in the response that they gave us. But then a couple more things. They presented that field goal to ownership the week before. Last week at the New York City league meetings, the fall meeting, all the owners and executives were gathered. And as part of the football update, the football operations staff or the NFL office showed them that play to further, bolster their defense that nothing happened here. And then, as you pointed out, the NFL has continued to make this a story because on Thursday Night Football last week, Al Michaels of Amazon Prime's broadcast mentioned, he must have seen it. I didn't talk to Al. I'm assuming he saw it in clips that he was reading because he does read a ton of news and he's very up to date on NFL news. He mentioned as Will Reichard lined up for a field goal that Will's only miss of the season was when his ball hit a cable in London. And then an hour later, about an hour in the broadcast time later, a full quarter of football later, another field goal attempt later, this is what Reichard's third field goal attempt of the night, Al goes back and corrects himself in his sarcasm, his trademark sarcasm, and says the league was trying to take his lunch away because he said the ball hit the wire. And he said, no, the league says it's an optical illusion. So once Al corrected himself on the air, any viewer of football, at the level that we are, knows what happened behind the scenes there. And then the league confirmed that Walt Anderson, their communications analyst in the officiating department, called Terry McCauley, Amazon Prime's rules analyst, and told him, no, this football did not hit the wire. So that was all the behind the scenes that was going on immediately during that Thursday night game. Going back to a kick that happened 3 weeks ago and issuing that defense again. So that's when my radar went up the second time on this story and was like, okay, I need to do something further here.
Well, and what confused and irritated me was the words optical illusion, that they would put that out there in response to what Al said nearly 3 weeks after it happened, because this happened on the Sunday of week 5, the same day that a Justin Fields pass, or no, it was a Dak Prescott pass, got hit. I can't remember which team threw the pass. It doesn't matter. It was Cowboys, Jets.
I think it was
the
the
ball
Jets.
hit the camera. The ball hit the camera, and it was obvious the ball hit the camera. And the issue there was nobody recognized that when that happens, the whole play is supposed to be done over. The teams didn't recognize it. The officials replay assist. So it happened, and they completely blew what was, and it was a third down play. It was the Jets driving early in the game, 3rd and goal from the 7. They would have gotten a mulligan. They would have had another shot at it, and nobody understood it, and Aaron Glenn didn't throw a red challenge flag. And then that same day, somebody from the Vikings sent me the clip of the ball apparently hitting the wire. And so, we do our work. We try to find out what the league says about it. And what I was told off the record at the time, there's no clear view of the ball hitting the wire, which told me, okay, they must realize the ball hit the wire. They just didn't have a clear view of it. And my point is this, Kalyn, And this is one of the things that they need to get their arms around this, especially with all this gambling stuff that is now going to be part of our reality and people are going to be suspicious about everything. You got to get your story out there affirmatively and proactively. You can't just sit on it and bury your head and have your talking points ready in the event that Al Michaels or someone else dredges it up 3 weeks later. You got to get the story out there at the time, because when you do it like that, the first reaction is going to be baloney. That's not what happened. You got to even, and now it's important to tell the truth, but you got to tell your story early, or no one's going to believe it when it pops up late as a reaction to something someone said.
Yeah. And I think the other interesting part here is that, for me doing this story, I was like, I honestly don't actually care whether the football hit the wire or not. Like, yes, that is the whole point of this, but the NFL's response to it and the Vikings' response to it and Will Reichard's agent's response to it, all of that combined, and Al Michaels' response to it, it's created such noise around what happened that then became the story. So that's what I was interested in writing about, is like, there was enough people questioning what happened with this football in London 3 weeks ago that Will Reichard's agent reached out to a contact in the league office. He would not specify to me who the person in the league office was and what their exact title was, but it was someone. I mean, he went so far as to say, like, it wasn't someone in marketing, it wasn't someone in finance. He was like, it was someone that he believed to have a level of power over this sort of question. And Reichert's agent, Jim Ivler with Sports Stars, he represented a ton of different kickers over the last 30 years and other NFL players as well. But he wanted, he recognized, okay, we can't go back and like redo the play. And honestly, I feel like his ask was probably unprecedented. I know that the league will review credit for sacks or whether something was a rushing yard or a receiving yard, but they're not like adding yards or taking yards away from someone. They're just dispersing the credit in after the fact. And so what Ivler was asking for was for the league to make Reichard 0-0 for the day, as if this field goal didn't happen, since he didn't have the chance to redo it in the moment. And by the way, the Vikings and Will and everybody there did not notice anything in the moment, because you've been on the sideline. If you've ever been at an NFL game, it is really hard to tell what happens to the football. Sometimes you can't even tell if it's good or bad, good or no good. So anyways, Reichard went to the league office, his contact there, and asked and said, hey, we think his football hit the wire. Could we get an adjustment to his stats? And that person went and talked to someone else, then came back to him about 30 minutes later and said, you know what, yeah, we feel like it did. We feel like we could probably do this. Sort of an initial confirmation of what Ivler thought he saw. And then a couple hours later, the same person called him back and said, actually, no, I spoke too soon. We're not going to be able to do that because the play wasn't reviewed in the moment. And a field goal like that, the touching of the ball touching a foreign object is a reviewable aspect by replay. So in the replay room in New York, if they saw that, if they noticed anything, they would be able to initiate a review. It's also challengeable as well. So if the coaching staff had noticed it, they could be able to issue a challenge there too. So neither of those things happened. So Ivler was told, you know what, we're not going to be able to do this. But that, and then he reached out to Jordan Schultz. If you remember Jordan Schultz's tweet a few days later, where Schultz tweeted a variation of that. And I remember seeing that and I was like, that's crazy. The league said it hit the wire. And in a sense, per Ivler and per Will Reichard, because Kevin Seifert, our Vikings reporter who worked with me on this, he talked to Will on Monday, because somehow Will had actually not been asked anything about this, because as I said, like, nobody at the game thought this was a thing until later, when watching the film back and seeing how his ball took a weird turn to the side and looked like it had been influenced by something. It wasn't until after the fact that the Vikings and Will noticed something was up. And then the Vikings special teams coordinator, Matt Daniels, said they submitted it to the league officiating department as one of their 10 questions, one of the 10 plays they can submit every week. I don't know officially what the league said back to them, but I'm going to imagine it was probably exactly the statement, that they gave us at ESPN for the story.
And, we're showing the play there. It really does look like the ball hits the wire, because you see the wire move as if something hit it. The wire flops, and maybe it is an optical illusion. But, the point is, Tell us that at the time. Show us that at the time. And I was fascinated by the wrinkle. We didn't write about the Jordan Schultz report, and my understanding is that that story was shopped to various other of the insiders, and a lot of them wouldn't touch it, which gets to a topic that maybe we'll get to in a minute. But Schultz did, and you got Ivler on the record. I'm surprised that, regardless of who the source was, I'm surprised anybody in the league office would have even thought they could do this. It would be unprecedented, because the right response is, if that ball hit the wire, there are procedures for fixing it, and those procedures weren't activated. So that's it. It's no different than an interception that was an erroneous call, and there was clear and obvious evidence it was erroneous, but nobody threw the red flag, or nobody noticed it,
Right.
or that the process fell apart. There's nothing you can do about it after the fact. The time for a remedy is during the game. That should have been the answer. That's what makes this story even more interesting. They screwed that up too. Whoever told him that preliminarily just flat out blew it. They never should have said to him, yeah, we think we can do this.
Yeah, and Ivler's takeaway now, he's like, it's crazy. He's amazed that this is still a story. And he made the point of like, it wouldn't still be a story had the league just allowed Al Michaels to say what he said and then just carried on. Like, I wouldn't have written about it, because it wouldn't have, spiked my antenna of like, oh wow, Walt Anderson must have called the production team to correct them. Like, if the league had not corrected them, I don't think we would be here talking about this right now, or at least I wouldn't be here. But Ivler's point now is that he's like, okay, I get it. There's nothing we can do about it now. They're not going to change his, as you mentioned, that would be unprecedented. They're not going to change his stats. What they need to do, in his opinion, is review where these cameras are and where these wires are, and to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because, as you pointed out, also on week 5, a deflected pass hit the actual camera, and that was not officiated correctly either. And in the football update at the owners' meetings, the football operations staff also played that play and said to the owners and executives that, yes, if this had been officiated properly, it would have been a do-over. They would have just replayed the down instead of being ruled an incompletion. So clearly, I mean, it is not common that this happens, but it's common enough, I guess, that it happened twice in 1 week. And so maybe there's something that the league needs to do with its broadcast partners to, make sure that these cameras are more out of the way or moving, or, I don't know what the solution is. But I also was texting somebody yesterday who was telling me, someone who works for another team, a different team not involved in this, who said they had a punt hit the camera wire a couple of years ago and nothing was done. They noticed it in the moment, but the next play was happening and they couldn't do anything about it. And they said, it did affect the punt. And so this is something that, again, it's just anecdotal information, but it's something, again, that happened to another team that I was just, talking to. And this person was like, why don't they look at the camera angle from the camera that was actually affected? Like, because and I was like, that seems actually a little bit too logical almost. Like, that seems...
And the camera moves.
Exactly.
When the wire gets hit, you're going to see a reaction in the camera.
Yeah, that's what this person was recommending, is like, well, we thought at the time, well, why can't we just see the angle from the camera? And I will say the NFL did send me a video. We would have published it, but we couldn't because of broadcast rights. Like, they were fine with the sharing of the link, but it was like, you can't, so I screenshotted it. And if you see our story, you'll see the screenshots from the story. They highlight the position of the camera wires. There's 4 wires and they highlight them in one of the angles. Then there's a side angle and they show the wire going up off the screen, and then they highlight the ball as well. But in that angle, both the ball and the wire finish off screen. So you can't actually see the end of the trajectory in that angle. And in the wide angle, it does appear from that angle with the wires highlighted. They highlight them before Will Reichard kicks a football, but as soon as he kicks a football, they remove the highlighting from the edit. So it does appear in that one, like, you're like, okay, maybe it didn't hit from this angle. I can see where the wires are now. Like, from this wider shot, you know what? Maybe it didn't hit. So they did send me more video, but they'd not included in that was the angle from the actual camera. That was not part of it.
And that may be the bottom line to all of this. If they just would have addressed it in real time. Now, again, they told me off the record, there's no clear view. And maybe that's the truth, that, okay, we think it hit, but we need clear and obvious evidence that it hit if we were going to overturn this in the moment. And just like any other play where there isn't clear and obvious evidence, I remember Dean Blandino explaining to me years ago that a punt that clearly struck a guy's leg and was therefore a live ball that the punt team could recover, they didn't overturn it because they didn't have actual video of the ball hitting the guy's leg. You could see the ball move on the other side of his leg, but you didn't see the ball hit the leg, and that's how the clear and obvious standard is supposed to go. Now, it's clear and obvious to me that I'm out of time. This was awesome. We encourage everyone to check out Kalyn's work. You are one of the few that will try to find out the stuff they don't want us to know. And I have intense respect for that because I know that is not easy. It's so much easier to just traffic in the stuff that they want us to know. So best wishes as you continue to fight the good fight. We'll check out Kalyn's work at ESPN.com. Make sure you see her story on the Will Reichard kick that either did or didn't hit the wire. Kalyn, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
All right, there she is, Kalyn Kahler. We'll wrap things up right after this. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.